Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. In today's show, our spotlight is going to be on the plight of Kashmiris and, of course, the atrocities that are being committed in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. For over 7 decades, Kashmir issue has remained on the agenda of United Nations Security Council, but still it remains an issue on which we see silence on the part of international community. And more than 2 million Kashmiris have lost their lives in the liberation struggle since 1989. And when we look at the history, of course, we know that since 1990, Pakistan has observed the 5th of February as Kashmir Solidarity Day. BJP government has employed different tactics to, of course, to commit atrocities against Kashmiris and to, of course, malign and suppress the civilians and malign the dissent that is taking place in Kashmir. When we look at the atrocities committed in Kashmir, of course, we look at the genocide that is happening on these Muslims within Kashmir. In today's program, we will be talking about this ongoing conflict in Kashmir, the agenda of BJP government and how it is suppressing Kashmiri Muslims within the, of course, territory as well. And to discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani, who is Kashmiri leader. Welcome to the program. We are also joined by former Ambassador Naela Chohan. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal, who is expert in international affairs. Welcome to the program, Dr. Jaspal. Mr. Wani, let me start with you. Of course, we celebrate 5th of February as a day to commemorate the struggles of Kashmiris. But Pakistan has been, of course, observing 5th of February since 1990s. How do you see that this has helped raise this issue on international forums to bring the plight of Kashmiris forward?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, let me thank the government of Pakistan, people of Pakistan, and all political parties and religious parties of Pakistan, all stakeholders in Pakistan who observe this day as a solidarity with the people of besieged, occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Having said that, take you to the history. It is not the 5th February only, or which Pakistan celebrates or observes as a solidarity with the people of Kashmir. Pakistani people have always been at the back of the Kashmiri's freedom struggle since the inception of Pakistan, and Kashmiris have decided to have their future with the Pakistan even before the Pakistan came into existence. If I will go back, first of all, the people of this area, this region, as I mean the Punjab, the North India before partition, it was in 1932 when the people of this area, especially the Muslims, observed as a Kashmir Day. On 14th of August 1932, it was after what we say martyrs, Kashmir Martyrs Day of 1931, 13 July 1931. After that, 22 people were martyred by the Dogra forces, and the people of Kashmir would come to the northern plains for work and will narrate their stories, how they are subjugated by the Dogra tyranny there. And that's how the Kashmir Committee came into existence, and then that Kashmiri Committee decided on 14th of August 1932 to observe a Kashmir Day, and thereby that paved the way for the Kashmiris' political rights as well as the civil rights at that time. And from 1947 onwards, we have seen how this struggle has been continued by the people of Kashmir for their rights, and Pakistan has always been there. And this has played a huge role in Kashmiri's struggle. It might not see us here that we have a show or a rally or something else, but it means a lot to those people who are struggling, who are under the Indian suppression, who don't have rights to speak, who cannot write, who cannot even write a post on the Facebook or any of the social media. and their all rights have been snatched, and now their land is being annexed, their everything has been taken away by the Indians. For those people, it means a lot. They think that there are 2,500,000 million people, crore Pakistanis at the back of Kashmiris, and that gives them moral courage and moral boosting of the Kashmiri youth.
Right. Ambassador Naela, that is very significant that Pakistan is amplifying the voices of those Kashmiris that are being oppressed. But can you elaborate on the structural violence that has been employed by the Indian government, especially the BJP government, to suppress the dissent within Kashmir?
Nikki, the question is not about dissent. It is about their right to self-determination. Dissent is when you don't agree with someone. Here it is not dissent, it is self-determination which is given to them through United Nations Security Council resolutions. So we have to be cognizant of the ground reality. If the international body, the United Nations Security Council, has resolutions on resolution of Kashmir dispute, as they would call it in the resolutions, that needs to be implemented. Now, Indian strategy has been very wicked. As far as we are concerned, we call it unfinished agenda for partition. That was totally, false, how Kashmir was annexed by Indian forces. Subsequently, they had Article 370 in their constitution, which was their pretext to say, oh no, but we are not really usurping them, they will have their independence, they will have their identity, and so on and so forth. So the world accepted it. Now they have,
because they removed the special status of
no,
Kashmir.
now in 2019 they abrogated it.
Of course.
Once they abrogated it, all the laws that were passed by the Parliament of occupied Kashmir are now repealed. And now they are directly under Delhi. So everything they do, all their laws will now be from Delhi, not their own. So they have no flag, they have no identity, and in Article 370 it was at least stated that no foreigner or outsider could come and buy property there. Now the Modi regime is trying to enforce by forcing people to go and buy plots there so that they could bring a demographic change. In pursuit of that, they have been trying to suppress the Kashmiri voice through torture, through atrocities. The other day I was reading, Wani Sahib, you can verify that Ghulam Muhammad Sahab, in his ankles they put in GPS.
Yes.
So that wherever he goes, they will be monitoring his activities. In Karcel, they would not give them food. They would cut their body parts and give them ke ye khao. Can you imagine somebody cutting your stomach and giving it to you to eat because they are not giving you any food?
Right. Mr. Wani, I would like your take on this as well, that of course these horrifying and heart-wrenching events are being taking place and the world is in silence in witnessing these. What are the reasons that none of the Indian officials have been charged for committing these crimes in the past 30 years against these Kashmiri Hurriyat leaders?
You see, basically India has employed such laws that which provide blanket impunity to Indian military forces, to their police and other agencies. They are very much above the law in Kashmir by virtue of Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which is there from May 1990. And along with that, most recently they amended the UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which also gives sweeping powers to the army and other their NIA, other agencies. So under these perspectives, there have been reports by the local civil society and also by the international civil society on the pretext how the Indian army personnel were involved, and there are detailed reports of that. But none of them was tried in the court of law. If sometimes under the pressure, there was an inquiry from 1920 2008 till date, we had 108 inquiry commissions and judicial commissions in Kashmir, but no report was published so far. In some cases, where there was more public pressure or international pressure, then again, then those cases were handed over to the army, then court martial released those persons, even those persons, because they kill people only to get rewards. Because and most recently, the Jammu Kashmir police has said if anybody is having any poster, anything like social media on anywhere, he will be given 300,000 rupees Indian if anybody gives the information about that person. So they have weaponized the information, like Ambassador was telling you about the Ghulam Muhammad Bhatt Saab. He has been put a ring around his ankle so that his movement can be checked. This is digital siege with the personal privacy. His privacy is being
monitored constantly.
And it's not only the one person. Now the Jammu and Kashmir police has been distributing forms with the given to the people to fill up them, to say the whole detail of their family, CCTV camera details, and also is there anybody outside country in the neighboring countries. So when he came, when he went away, and who comes to your house, who leaves. So you are being monitored
constantly.
At leave.
Let me bring
there is a lot of has been said on this by the international human rights organizations, by the UN special rapporteurs, but India, they are arrogant enough, they don't care about it.
Right. Let me bring Dr. Jaspal into the discussion. Of course, Dr. Jaspal, when we look at this pertinent point that is being raised by Mr. Wani, that is about the communication blockages within Kashmir. How do you think that these communication and internet shutdown is impacting the human rights violations in Kashmir?
I think that Wani Saab very rightly pointed out. The most important point is that in the 21st century, if you have to disconnect the community from the rest of the world, or to make the Kashmir as which we call it illegally occupied Kashmir, a jail, it's just like a jail when there's no communication, there is a blockade, internet blockade, and people cannot understand in the international community what is happening there. But at the same time, everyone is aware in the world that since 2019, 5th August, what has been happening in Kashmir. There is a crisis, there is a blockade, there is a torture, there is a genocide, and there are nearly 1 million military and paramilitary Indian forces governed from Delhi directly, butchering the Kashmiris. And these all things are there. Of course, the blockade or their right of movement, or even the human rights organizations have been banned. These tactics which India has adopted to destroy the Kashmiri's voice, I think it is a violation of the international law, it's a violation of the human rights, it's a violation of the United Nations resolutions as well.
Right, of course. Ambassador Naela, there is around or more than 10 million people living within Kashmir. What is the significance of course, India's illegal occupation on this territory and India still getting away with it in the 21st century?
I'm not sure if it's getting away with it, but at this moment it's not getting reprimanded as it should.
Because we see that the revocation of Article 370 and 35A has of course taken away the special status or identity of Kashmir as well. So don't you think it was kind of getting away act?
No, actually if you see that, you see as I was telling you that how they changed the situation of Kashmir gradually. So abrogation of Article 370 and 35A was in that direction in 2019, 5th August. Subsequently, the Kashmiris filed a case against the government, Modi government, for repealing this act, and to our horror, the Supreme Court of India validated Modi's action, which shows how unbiased and judicious the Supreme Court is. This was indeed a heartbreak for the Kashmiris. But when people ask me, I say, this is their internal action. As far as international law is concerned, Kashmir is a disputed territory. and is on the agenda of United Nations Security Council. Nothing has changed that. So as far as international law is concerned, India is deluding itself. It does not change the status of Kashmir, and India is accountable to the international community for not only the atrocities that it's committing of human rights violations, but also depriving them for the right to self-determination, for which actions should have been taken.
So, Ms. Rawani, how has, in your opinion, all parties Hurriyat conference characterized these tactics by the Modi government?
See, all parties Hurriyat conference, the first onslaught by the Modi government was on all parties Hurriyat conference. As soon as in 2014, when the BJP government was formed in India, New Delhi, till that date we had only military repression in Kashmir. It was only military repression. Military would conduct takedowns, they would kill innocent civilians, they would make people disappear, they would torture people, they would use all these tactics in Kashmir. But when the BJP came into power, they strategized things very differently. On one hand, they continued the brutal military repression in Kashmir. On the other hand, their assault was on the political leaders, to discredit them, to debase them, and then to cage them. They were caged, they were put behind the bars, false accusations were leveled against them, false cases were registered against them.
And they tried to take legal backing as well.
And they were taken to the prisons that they were held. In that era, you have might be knowing about it, how Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani was martyred at, he got martyred at Spoon. Burhan Wani is in 2006, I'd say, after 5th of August, when Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani was not given any of the medical facilities, he was caged in his home for 11 years. And then Muhammad Ashraf Sarai, another senior Hurriyat leader, who was died in Kot Bilwal jail because he was not provided the medical facilities. Likewise, Altaf Ahmad Shah, another leader and son-in-law of Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, he died in Delhi's Tihar jail. Again, he was not provided the political, the medical facilities. Now you see Muhammad Yasin Malik is almost, he is on the radar of Indians, and they are going to hang him like they hanged the Maqbul Bhatt and Afzal Guru in order to win the elections. Other leaders like Shabir Shah, Naeem Ahmad Khan, Masrat Alam Bhatt, Asya Indrabi, our lady leader, and with her two colleagues, they are also in the Delhi's Tihar jail. So all the Hurriyat conference is almost caged. They are under the severe threat of the Indians. Their life is under threat. But still then, the people who are outside and who are in AJK, who are in Pakistan and who are in different parts of the world, they raise their voice, they continue to raise voice. If you have seen in 2019, 5th of August, after that, the uprising which took place around the globe, there were congressional hearings in the United States, there were also parliamentary debates in different countries on the situation on Kashmir. So the All Parties Hurriyat Conference is playing its part in order to create awareness around the globe about this issue, and trying to people know that there cannot be peace in this region until Kashmir is solved.
Right, that is true, but can you elaborate on the impact of different legislations like Armed Forces Special Powers Act and Jammu and Kashmir Public Safety Act on these human rights violations within the valley?
These are the basic laws which facilitate these human rights violations. Armed Forces Special Power Act, as I already said, that gives total impunity to the security agencies. They can barge in your house, they can kill you, they can torture you, they can disappear you. There is no persecution for that in any civil court of law. Likewise, Public Safety Act, it is called what Amnesty International called it. It is a revolving door policy that you keep a man in and get him out and again arrest him. Is a revolving door policy which they kept against our leaders. Some of the leaders have 38 public safety acts continuously. Yes. They are slapped on them, and that's why our younger generation is almost 1,500 people were arrested, and they are under these public safety acts. Our journalists and others, they are caged because of this UAPA, unlawful Activities Prevention Act. This is very notorious law which Indian government has, and again I will tell you, there have been 14 communications by the special reporters, UN special reporters on this to government of India, that these laws are notorious, they are in contravention to the international standards, they should be repealed, but India is not doing anything on it, and the political governments around the globe are not making India accountable for that.
Of course. So, Dr. Jaspal, what's your take on the establishment of these scenic colonies and efforts to change the demographics within the valley?
I think that it's a violation of the international law. It's equally violation of the India's own constitution, though the Indian Supreme Court made an illegal decision with which we say the death of the India's idea. The demographic changes which they are making, it is unprecedented and it is not permissible internationally or according to international law. And at the same time, it's a violation of the United Nations relevant resolutions on the Kashmir, as well as the Geneva Convention. But we have seen that Hindutva forces, or especially BJP government in the Delhi, they are determined that things that by changing the demographic and you can say placing the Hindu in the Kashmiri territory or in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir will be beneficial for them. My understanding is it will further deteriorate the situation in the valley and in the Jammu and Kashmir, because the locals will be not going to accept, and these kind of tactics maybe have a small policy kind of a relief, but for a longer time it further germinate fisheries within the society, and which will have a negative impact on this society. That's why this demographic change policy of the India must be condemned and at the same time stopped. Unfortunately, international community, especially American-led world, the Western world, has been not, you can say, taking this issue as a very serious issue, as a very, you can say, ethnic cleansing kind of issue that must be taken seriously by the international community.
Right. Ambassador Sahiba, what's your take on this, that the ethnic cleansing as well as this tactic used by the Modi government regarding the resettlement of Pandits in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, how this is going to be changing demographics and how this is going to be impacting the state elections within the region?
Dekhiye, if you talk about Pandit Nehru was also of Kashmiri origin. So Pandits have been there, and it was Pandits' strategy to add Hindu population there. They have been trying it over last 7 decades and unsuccessful. Now Modi regime, what it's trying is that it is giving incentives to their soldiers to retire there with plots.
Yes.
So they would be given plots in Kashmir as a reward for the atrocities they have committed. But if you look at the history, the land of Kashmir is for Kashmiris. Outsiders have never survived there, have never been successful in settling there. This land will always belong to Kashmiris, no matter what Indian policies may be. They don't understand the ground reality of that land. It is very different from others.
Right. So, Mr. Wani, what's your take on these resettlement of course, demographics, and also about Pakistan's effort regarding highlighting this issue and presenting dossiers and sending dossiers in the past few years? We have seen to different embassies of different countries as well as at United Nations. How do you see all these efforts?
You see, first of all, the Indian efforts of changing the demographics of Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as Ambassador already said, the BJP, before embarking on this project of Hindutva in Kashmir and changing the demography of Jammu and Kashmir, as already I said, the first target was the All-Party Hurriyat Conference leadership in Kashmir. And then they, on 5th of August, they changed the whole scheme of things by changing the demography in the state subject laws, and thereafter enacting many such laws that facilitate the demographic change. And above all, and the way they did the delimitation of the assembly segments, that was again to disempower the Muslims of Jammu and Kashmir in order to favor the BJP. That was the thing, that BJP wanted to install a Hindu or a BJP chief minister in Indian occupied Kashmir. That was their scheme of things. What Pakistan's efforts, Pakistan has been doing at each and every level. I am a witness to it, be it United Nations, be it the Human Rights Council, or all other international forums. Pakistan will take the matter to there and will talk about it, and also there is a lot of hue and cry on this each and at every level. But still, we feel that unfortunately the world alliances, the way they have been created at this time, their preferences are something different. And that so-called democratic world, or the world whom we call the human rights world, they care for human rights. We have seen they don't care for human rights, they care for their interests. Wherever they have interests, they will intervene. Where they have lesser interests, they won't intervene. They did an intervention in the Ukraine Russia war, but they did not intervene here. And also we see now in Gaza and Palestine-Israel crisis, we see those big powers shying away from criticizing the Israeli genocide of Palestinians,
Right, and even within Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, there is ban on showing any solidarity with the Palestinians.
That's everywhere in
Right.
India, that you can't show the solidarity now with the people of Palestine and all that. So the thing is, Pakistan's efforts are there, but the current global political discourse is like that. We don't get that much of hearing at the international level. For that purpose, I think now we are at the very near to the elections, and the new government will come and will do with a lot more interest, and we will have a stable government in Pakistan that will further take the issue of Kashmir, so that people around the globe will take it more serious.
Right, but Mr. Wani, what do you make of this code of criminal procedures that have been passed by, of course, Indian Supreme Court to impose ban on these public gatherings, like you also mentioned about showing solidarities with Palestinian, and also highlighting the atrocities committed against their own people? What do you make of this?
You see, already we have discussed perhaps that Hindutva ideology, which currently is ruling the India, this is the same as was the Nazis, and they are alike. And likewise, now India has been taken over by these. There is no secularism in India, there are no secularist parties in India. Even all those secularist parties are not in a position to speak against the kind of political discourse Modi has made in India. You see the Modi's building the temple on Babri Masjid and then inaugurating it when starting his election campaign for 2024 from the foundation of that temple and all that. This gives a clear signal, and this should be very much clear to the international community also. India is no more now a democracy. India is no more now a secular country. India is a Hindutva country. India has been turned to this is a sovereignization now all over in India, and it has already shown its colors in Leicester, in UK, and also in America and other places. So world will have to take now it serious.
Right, of course. And of course, Dr. Jaspal, what's your take on this extrajudicial killings? And of course, we have witnessed a pattern of these killings in the past few years, and especially in the recent past, we have witnessed, like Mr. Wani also highlighted, in Canada as well. So the world is, of course, waking up to this reality of India being a oppressive and suppressive state. So do you think that international community is going to take account of all these suppressions that are being taken place at the state level, or the genocide that is happening at the state level?
I think that you very rightly pointed out, India has been involved in these kind of the tactics, not internally but externally as well. It is suppressing all the voices which are democratically demanding the right of self-determination, whether it's a Kashmiri voice or a Sikh voice. And in that context, they are not sparing any space. For instance, in the case of Kashmir, in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir, we have seen the entire Hurriyat leadership behind the bars. People are dying illegally. They are, you can say, charged and punished. Torture is there. Similarly, India has started attacking the same voices which have been demanding their rights outside of the India. For instance, you were rightly pointed out in the case of Canada, the Sikh leader was killed and Canada protested. This protest was documented. Even the Americans have now seen that Indians have been encouraged on these things because the international community has not stopped India's these kind of the illegal acts or criminal acts. As a result, we have seen that India has hired a hitman to kill American national in New York. Though he was saved by the American intelligence and then they protested. But the point here is, unfortunately, the American-led Western world, including the Canada, they are giving more significance to their strategic, you can say, objectives or military objectives in the region rather than human rights or their democratic values. Of course, if this trend continues, India will be encouraged, or has already been encouraged, to commit these kind of the crimes not only in Kashmir but also in India and other parts of the India as well as out of the India. These trends are not, you can say, supported or accepted because they are a great violation of the international law, and it is against the human rights and it's against the democratic rights, and the international community has to take into account sooner or later. Definitely they are going to take into account, and India has already been exposed internally and externally.
Right. So let me come to Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Naela, what's your take on these measures taken by the Indian government, especially when we talk about the international legal perspectives in this regard, in of course violations of the 4th Geneva Convention?
I think it's totally absurd, because if India thinks that by changing their internal rules and regulations they can really take Kashmir as an integral part of India, that is not possible. Kashmir still remains to be on the agenda of the UN Security Council. Kashmir is still being discussed in Human Rights Council. So as far as international law is concerned, Indian policies, whether there is the Supreme Court or it's the Modi Hindutva regime, it's not going to change the international status of Kashmir. So this should be very clear to them.
But even if India is violating 4th Geneva Convention and other international conventions on Kashmir, what do you think the silence of international community in response to all these atrocities and of course the changes in demographies that are being done by Indian government, and of course with the upcoming elections coming up, how do you see this situation unfolding, especially on the international stage?
At international stage, I wouldn't say the international community is silent, but action has yet not been taken. The matter is still deliberated upon. The matter is still discussed. Our permanent representative to UN is regularly briefing the Secretary General on the developments. We are regularly in our speeches in the UN are highlighting the Kashmir issue. The interim Prime Minister during his visits recently also highlighted Kashmir issue, and you may be cognizant of the fact that EU, when they sent their delegation to India, they were to visit Kashmir or Indian occupied Kashmir, and they wanted to meet the opposition or you could say Kashmiri leaders in prison. India refused to give them that access, and they only showed them areas where they had a little bit of control, so that the foreign observers would not see the atrocities on the ground. But the EU delegation just refused to carry out the visit because they said, if you are not letting us meet the prisoners, you are depriving us from the realities on the ground. So Indian strategy of giving them a very channelized visit failed. They also keep on targeting journalists.
But I want to come to this point of international observers, of course, visiting, trying to visit the imprisoned leadership. What specific actions did these observers and other human rights organizations take or have taken in response to these atrocities that are being committed and that are very apparent to these observers as well as to human rights organizations? Are there some concrete actions that have been taken as a result of these visits?
Well, I don't know how you define concrete, but they have put it in their reports. So it is now in the record of the international bodies what India is doing. So now once it is on the record, that itself is a recognition, because we keep on highlighting it. But if neutral observers, outside observers also make similar reports, it validates our position.
Of course. So, Dr. Jaspal, I want to talk about these efforts by the Indian government regarding the re-annexation of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and of course with the upcoming elections. How do you think that international community is going to be, of course, witnessing all these efforts by the Indian government, and what do you think that Pakistan can do in response to these efforts by the Modi government?
I think that the Modi government, or you can say the Indian general election, which will be going to take place in April, May, definitely international observers visit India, but you know that these international observers will be not allowed to visit the illegally occupied Indian Kashmir. Last December, when Indian Supreme Court, you can say, sanctions or approved what happened on 5th August 2019. After that, they said that the state elections will take place in September 2024. I have a doubt that during the general elections, there will be an election in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir. So if there is no election, there is no constituency, and there will be no observers. This is an established fact. The sane voices in the international community, or the neutral voices, they have been condemning, they will continue to condemn the atrocities in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir, and they are demanding the execution of the United Nations relevant, you can say, resolutions for the sake, which have been demanding, or which are for the sake of right of self-determination of the Kashmiris. But at the same time, as we all are aware, the global politics is nowadays more driven by the strategic interest, not by the humanistic or democratic values interest. Americans, who themselves claim as a guardian of the democratic values, they are supporting the Modi government. And then the Western EU or these countries always question the violation of the human rights everywhere, but they are silent on the issue of Kashmir. So I'm not expecting anything good during the coming elections in India. Some better news for the Kashmiris, and these international observers will definitely deliberately ignoring what is happening in the Indian illegally occupied Kashmir.
Right. And Dr. Jaspal, when we talk about these efforts by Modi government regarding, of course, dividing Kashmir into union territories, and of course, you mentioned about the upcoming elections that are going to be held in 2024. Of course, India is planning to continue the illegal rule, but at the same time, we are witnessing that, of course, other extrajudicial killings that are being taken place by a state of India in other countries like Canada and US. They are, of course, condemning India for these acts. How do you think that Modi government is responding to these concerns that are being raised by the international community? And do you see that there is going to be a change in foreign policy of India in of course, response to these concerns?
My understanding is that the Prime Minister Modi and his party, or his entire group, they are very much radicalized, extremists. They are Hindutva forces, and their entire victory and their acceptability within the India is because of their extremism and within the hardcore or ultra-nationalist Hindutva forces in India. They are giving a damn importance to what the international community is thinking, and frankly, international community has not been asking them anything. They are not reprimanding them. So because of this, they are more, you can say, encouraged to do these kind of the things. Of course, Americans have expressed or attached their serious investigation in their hitman plot in New York, and they are delaying. I think it's just a eyewash. Americans are more interested to sell their weapons, like 4 billion drones. Agreement was finalized a few days back, I mean on February 2nd, in which they are giving India 3 categories of the drones to strengthen the Indians in Navy, Army, and Air Force. I think that in this situation, expecting anything good from the international community, especially from the Western nations or the United States, that they are going to condemn and asking the Modi government to behave and follow the rule of the law or international law, I think it will be not going to happen. In this context, definitely Indians will be involved more, but in the later or sooner or later, they will be questioned or they will be facing challenges in the international community. For how long they will permit for their economic and strategic interest India's haughtiness or India's illegality, not internally in the Indian occupied Kashmir, but internationally as well.
Right. Right. Of course, Dr. Jaspal, this is an ongoing issue and ongoing conflict, and thank you very much for your valuable input. We will be discussing this issue in future as well. And of course, Dr. Naela, lastly, what's your, what do you make of the current happenings within Kashmir with the illegal, of course, crimes committed against the people, and how the world community is, of course, responding to all this? Do you think a solution is going to be happening in near future? Of course, we keep on talking about this issue being on the agenda of United Nations Security Council for over 7 decades. So what do you make of the future for these Kashmiris?
I can't predict the future, but we have to keep our efforts going. We can't give up. The Kashmiri struggle has to continue. As you can see what is happening in Gaza, Modi regime is trying to emulate the Israeli model of first doing the atrocities and then sending their settlers in so that the land gets occupied by non-Palestinians. Here too, what they are trying to do is first send their soldiers, commit atrocities, push the local community out, and then wanting to have a Hindu community, a non-Kashmiri community to come and settle in Kashmir. So if you can see the parallels, but at this moment I think Israel is also facing lot of difficulty. As yet they had been getting away with it. But now after South Africa's case against Israel, this has given a jolt to USA and to Israel. And I hope it will make Modi realize also that the policies he is emulating are not successful and he may not get away with it. It really depends on the election. At this moment he might get more votes.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I am confident it's going to backfire.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much, Ambassador Naela Chohan, for joining us in today's program. Of course, we discussed about the atrocities that are being committed in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and this is an ongoing conflict that has been on the agenda of United Nations Security Council for over 7 decades. And Pakistan has always supported the cause of Kashmiris for their right to self-determination, and it has gone beyond always, of course, beyond the symbolic gestures, and Pakistan has always supported Kashmiri's struggle for self-determination morally, politically, and of course diplomatically as well. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.